Good morning. It is Monday, January 9th, 2023, and this is DC Signal to Noise. Since we last talked, a lot has happened. Christmas, New Year, several meetings, which would explain why Signal to Noise at 8:15 on Monday mornings hasn't happened for a few weeks. But we have had Jim on Tuesday morning on AgriTalk at 10:30 Central Time to give you kind of a mini Signal to Noise and make sure that everybody is up to speed. We are going to be off on next Monday, the 16th, for Martin Luther King Jr. Day with the government closed, and Jim will be on AgriTalk on the 17th to give you an update to what is going on. Let's see, what else has happened? China has lifted the COVID shutdown. The House has elected Representative McCarthy as Speaker. Brock Purdy still has not lost a game. The Cyclone basketball teams are both in the top 25, and I am glad that you are with us. I'm AgriTalk host Chip Flory. Jim Wiesemeyer, Pro Farmer Policy Analyst, is with us as well. Jim, good morning.
Good morning, Chip. I'm feeling much better. For those who know me, I've had the leg problem, but I had a pretty bad reaction to pain pills. So I don't usually take any pills. So I'm much better. I was out of pocket Friday. Yeah.
Had us a little worried there for a moment, Mr. Wiesemeyer. I'm glad that you're feeling better.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's go ahead and kick it off with things from last week, all right? And the number one thing that I have on the list is Kevin McCarthy elected as Speaker of the House. I don't know, technically it might have happened over the weekend, early Saturday morning.
Yeah, about 1:15 a.m. Eastern time, to be exact, because I was up. I felt their pain along with my pain.
Yeah.
But interesting. Let me give you a different snapshot of this, Chip. I don't mind when either party has intra-party battles because that's the give and take. And the six Republicans who voted present. Those are the real hardliners in the Republican Party, and I don't want to go beyond that because they want more issues than actual bills and progress, in my judgment. What the concessions that McCarthy and his allies gave are going to be important for the ag sector because I think one of the key things in there is that they're going to give the House Freedom Caucus members, I think, 3 seats on the Rules Committee. Now, why do I bring up the Rules Committee? That's an important committee that helps decides which bills goes onto the floor, but also the slate of the amendments. So the ag sector is always worried usually, but they have cause to be concerned that this will bring up in, say, the Farm Bill debate and other bills, sugar policy, crop insurance, but their lobbyists are well attuned to this and they'll educate members, Chip. But that's an important development.
Well, and right up front, it will determine how things like the debt ceiling are going to be handled and everything. Is that right, Jim?
Well, they have to work on the debt ceiling. I mean, you can go as late as August, I think, before they either do something about the debt ceiling. But that's going to be probably the biggest issue, Chip, for this calendar year. Again, we've always said this is money already spent, and how McCarthy and his allies finesse that is going to be interesting to watch. But they're going to need Democratic votes in the House for that one because more than a few Republicans will not vote for that.
Right. Gary Rasmussen just made an interesting point. The thing with McCarthy is it wasn't about making a point, it was about making a change. And what's coming out of DC sounds good to me.
I agree.
Yeah, really what it was about, and I'll admit it took me a little while to come around to exactly what was going on here. But they were taking out a lot of what protected Pelosi and made her as effective as she was.
Yeah, because it was from the top down.
Yes.
What the House Republicans want to do is go from the bottom up. The way when I first came to town in the mid 70s, Chip, how a bill becomes a law was you sat down in the subcommittee hearings, you had the markups at the subcommittee and the committee hearings, and you had just general give and take. We've lost that. And now this is a potential return to that, which I think you're going to get better legislation.
Yeah. The other thing that was in place was a process, a standard process on dealing with earmarks when you were first arrived in D.C. I mean, there is I like earmarks because if you follow the process. Yes. But the earmarks that were on the omnibus spending bill, good grief, Jim, that was just raise your hand and say, I'll take a piece of money too.
Yes. I think they're going to have an editor now of those, to use a journalistic term, of those earmarks, and that's to be applauded. We're going to have more balance, Chip, but they're going to have to handle sensitive issues. Well, so be it. We're going to see if both parties want issues or do they want bills. So we're going to put that to a test again, because the last election showed the American people, they don't want to fight. They don't want to have these fights between the parties all the time. They're tired of it. So I think this came to the floor during, those debates. Yep.
One of the most interesting comments that I saw in your report this morning, and it comes from one of the six, and he was kind of the leader. I shouldn't say that. I don't know.
Matt Gaetz.
Matt Gaetz. Yeah. I don't know if he was the leader of the six or just the most visible of the six. But when he came out and said, I ran out of things to ask for.
That's the key right there. Yes. And he still voted present. Now, that shows you the disdain why many Americans outside of the Capitol just don't like politics.
Jim, when that scramble happened right before the 15th vote, when they were voting to adjourn, and all of the sudden, Gaetz said something to McCarthy, or McCarthy said something to Gaetz, and they both threw the red card in the air and made their way to the pit.
Yeah.
You just wonder exactly what was said and what was going on.
Well, as we said over the weekend in exchanges on text, it was visibly, you saw how sausage was made there.
Right.
That's what goes on behind closed doors, and you saw it, but you could see the frustration. But when he said he got everything he wanted, he was scrambling to find out another ask for, and he still voted present. So that's just, you shake your head.
Yeah, exactly. One of the most interesting comments that we got from former Representative Mike Conaway last Thursday was, listen, they've gotten the group of 20 at that time has gotten what they've asked for. They've gotten those concessions. So the only way that you can claim victory now is to go ahead and vote McCarthy in as speaker. Otherwise, those concessions may be gone later.
Yeah. And, actually, when you look at it for post-analysis, like a football game, the Democrats made a mistake. If they really wanted to make the Republicans spin even more, they would have pushed more for adjournment Friday until today, Chip, because that would have led to more discord over the weekend. But they did not do that. They did not do that. And I'm thankful they did not, because I wanted this out of the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right. I think we can go ahead and move on. Just a reminder, as Gary and Melody, good morning, Melody, have already shown us that there's a comments tab on your screen. Go ahead and click on that if you'd like to be part of the conversation or have a question for Jim or for I. Of course, mostly for Jim. Over the weekend here, President Joe Biden visited the U.S.-Mexico border. It happened under, I think the expectation was that it would happen under the cover of the fight in the House. Most of that fighting was complete by the time the president got there, but he checked the box, right? He checked the box for his campaign.
And yeah, that means he is running in 2024. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And can we take anything more away? Is there going to be anything substantive come out of that visit going forward?
To Mexico? You mean with Mexico and Canada?
No, with Mexico. At the border? Just to the border.
I think so. Now, I'll get most naysayers on this one, Chip, but I think this is now crystallized to now with the big cities, New York, Denver, California. Now both sides want some solutions to this. So now we're going to see if both political parties can give and take on the protect the border and alter immigration policy. So the odds at least are rising that we could get something finally done on this topic.
Okay. Also over the weekend, is it a coup attempt happening in Brazil?
Well, it depends what you want to call it. Resurrect an insurrection or whatever. You've got the liberal newspapers already comparing it to our January the 6th.
Yeah, good.
But this was his supporters. I think there were like 400 arrested.
Right.
Sunday on this one, but it is settled down now. But it shows the sensitivities around the world when you have two very divergent political parties in any country. We saw it here, and we're seeing it in Brazil.
Yeah. Another thing over the weekend, it was maybe one of the most violent ceasefires in the history of war. Because Russia declared a ceasefire and just kept right on bombing, right?
Yeah, it's typical Putin. Yeah, want to get a ceasefire and then have at it, and they're increasingly allies with Iran on this one, who's providing more and more drones, including the kamikaze drones, Chip. So this thing is far from over, and it's going to get into the U.S. political debate as we get into the to the budget, because more than a few Republicans are saying, while it may not be zero funding for Ukraine, they want to have more say regarding how much and what U.S. aid is going for in Ukraine. So yeah, bottom line on Russia, Ukraine, this is a very much entrenched war.
Yeah. Okay. China, lifting of the restrictions around COVID. I don't know if you can call it an unrestricted travel at this point, but it's moving that direction.
Yeah, and that's got the market, pleased. They're going through some problems there now. Chinese officials, when you read the Chinese press, which we do, Chip, they're trying to backdate this thing and saying, well, we were moving toward lifting the zero COVID before these protests began. Well, we know that that's incorrect, but so they're already backpedaling on that. But it's clear Xi made a mistake on his zero COVID policy, and they're going through the process now. And that's a good thing eventually, because China is such a centric in the world that eventually it will be positive on both their exports and imports. And that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think we need to prepare for some hard times in China before we get to that point, though, don't we?
Well, their healthcare system is not geared up, and and their populace are asking questions about, hey, why? As we've said on this program before, they're seeing all these football games, and they're seeing soccer games without the mask, and a lot of people congregating, and they're wanting to know why they've been literally locked down for what, a long
3
time.
years. Yeah, it's darn near 3 years now.
Yeah, and they're more than worried about their economy, Chip, and it's filtered through their chips industry,
Yeah.
their real estate industry. Again, as we've said, the the inability for them to maneuver far earlier is really hurting them now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he basically took 3 years of service out of the system, and importing countries are looking for alternatives, something that might be more reliable down the road, and just looking to spread out the risk of
Yes.
of those products.
And the policy tagline on that is, this is not the end of globalization. It's just a revision of globalization. As you said, the U.S. and other countries are looking to countries other than China for some of their imports for now and for the future. Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Mexico for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Senator Ben Sass retired yesterday at noon. What's so what is it now? That would make it 51-48?
Yes, but the Republican governor will quickly announce a replacement, so you'll be back to the normal ratio, Chip.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
he's got 2 years. No, but the interesting thing is both Nebraska senators will be up now for re-election in 2024.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Just a quick note on this. A bulk carrier holding corn got caught in the Suez Canal this morning, suffered some engine failure, carrying corn out of Ukraine. I talked with Dan Bossie on Friday afternoon, Jim, on AgriTalk, and I asked him about the grain flow coming out of the Black Sea. And he said it's been fantastic. It's been far better than what most expected, including Dan. So the grain is flowing out of the Black Sea region. There's no question about it, at least until it gets to the Suez Canal.
Yes. But again, I think the issue, on Ukraine is, what about their next production and exports, with the war just expanding?
Exactly.
That's going to be key. And that's why if you get two berries, you better watch out.
Right. Yeah, it could be another 40% cut to the corn crop or something like that. So we need to pay attention to it. Yeah. Here at home, and I didn't know exactly where to throw this one in over the weekend or last week. So let's address it right now. Deere has agreed to allow farmers to repair their own equipment.
Yes. In most ways, you got to read the memorandum of understanding, and as we've learned over the years, look at the details. But at least it's a complete step in the right direction. And I applaud Farm Bureau at their annual convention for getting the agreement with John Deere. They want other companies to do that. So at least it's a step in the right direction, Chip.
Right. Okay. Anything from last week or over the weekend that we've missed?
Absolutely. Our good friend Sean Haney, a regular participant on AgriTalk on Fridays, at the North American Summit, I'll call it, leaders going on today and tomorrow, the U.S. and Canada is going to talk about lifting some of the restrictions. Actually, both countries have on travelers between the two nations. So Sean has mentioned that several times on AgriTalk. So it may not be totally settled this week, but it looks like it's on the agenda for sure. Again, that's very good for U.S.-Canadian travel, investment, just flows. So I think that's a positive thing.
Okay. All right. Let's take a look at what's going on this week. Obviously, you mentioned it right off the start, but it's the rules, the vote on the rules in the House. I believe you said that there are three things. The 3 seats on the Rules Committee for the Conservatives. Now, is that out of the G20, the group of 20, or out of the final 6?
Well, we don't know yet, but I think it will be outside of the six.
Yeah.
So Cooper, I can't think of his name. Roy Cooper. Roy Cooper could be on that committee. He's one of the Freedom Caucus members, but at least he helped find solutions. So I want to look at those individual members who are on there.
Okay, very good. Another concession: freezing spending at the fiscal year 2022 levels, debt ceiling strategy there.
2022, fiscal year 2022. What does that mean for defense? So some people are saying that means what? $75 billion less for defense. That's going to be a big issue, Chip.
Yeah. And it's going to be moving some money around if there is an increase for defense and military spending.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are ways, it sounds like a lot of money, but defense has a huge portfolio of funding.
Yep. And then, of course, the committee assignments are coming up this week as well, right?
The biggest one, there's several that are, we don't know yet. I think we'll know by the end of the day. Yes. Ways and Means, that's your tax writing and trade policy. Who's going to lead that? So we're going to see. That's going to be very important in the next 2 years of this Congress.
All right. First up for the Republicans, they're looking to cut the IRS funding for the new agents, right?
Yeah, that's a message bill. Optic bill will go nowhere in the Senate.
Okay. Investigate economic competition from China.
Both parties agree to that. And you'll hear me increasingly say at least there's elements here that you can see some joint issues between Republicans and Democrats, and China is one of them, Jeff.
Okay. How the strategic petroleum reserve is used is on the agenda as well, isn't it?
Yes, they're going to kind of finesse of how you use it, how you replace it. I think that's needed, but again, it'll be curious how the Senate reacts to that.
Okay. New House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. What do we know exactly? What exactly do we know about Representative Jeffries?
Well, he's more, I wouldn't call him a moderate, but he's more moderate than the outgoing Speaker Pelosi. Yeah. He has to show his credentials to his party. So I think initially he'll be led rather than lead, Chip, on this one. So he'll walk slowly on this.
Okay. All right. Very good. President Biden has been to the border. He is going to Mexico City to meet with Obrador, Mexican President Obrador. What's on the agenda there? Aside the travel with Canada.
Yeah, well, the big one for ag is the Mexico's president said the GMO corn issue flap is on the agenda. So again, that's good news. We'll see if it's solved or if they have to have follow-up meetings, which probably will be the case. But I've always said when you have leaders talking with rather than to each other, that's always good, because you're eyeball to eyeball. You've got your staff there, the top staff who knows the issues. And so this is another potential check mark of an issue resolved, Chip. So again, this is a North American market. Let's get it underway. We had a question here from Dave Hyde. What influences will those 20 have on a new farm bill? It could be a game changer. They're going to open up the process. And I'll keep saying now, the role of amendments now is going to increase significantly. Agriculture should not be afraid of them. There can be some good amendments and there can be some negatives, but it makes education of members, especially the new ones and their staffs who usually do the work anyway, so important. So yes, I think they will have an influence. I don't buy the arguments I'm seeing in the general farm press media, Chip, that this decreases the odds that we'll have a new farm bill this year. I think that's a knee-jerk reaction because, a bulk of the farm bill has already been written. with the billions of dollars in climate change funding for agriculture. It's already law. Billions of dollars in food stamp funding. And we mentioned to G.T. Thompson Friday, I think we ran it, right, on AgriTalk. The Texas A&M put out a report late last week. What if we don't get a farm bill in 2023? They said it may come as a surprise to many that only about 5% of the funding in the farm bill is actually facing the threat of expiration on September 30th because of the SNAP. It's an appropriated entitlement. Crop insurance is permanently authorized by legislation outside of the Farm Bill, and the Inflation Reduction Act recently reauthorized spending for the major conservation programs. Now, when we address that to G.T. Thompson, the House Ag Committee chairman now, we don't have to say elect anymore, right. He answered us by saying, yes, but we need to modify some of the Farm Bill safety net features so we don't have to rely on an ad hoc disaster program each year. So we need to look at that crop insurance program to see how it can be approved. And I think that was the exact answer he should have given. Right.
Yeah, he seemed more than optimistic that they will get this done by the end of September.
Yeah, he said September. I thought before the August recess, but he said no. He wanted that August recess to get things together. And since we've been on, we had Senate Ag Committee Chair, Chairwoman Debbie Stabenow announced that she was not seeking re-election, and so we'll have a new farm bill within 2 years. I'll tell you that. I don't know whether we'll have a 1-year extension or not, but she knows how to get a farm bill done. So you have two willing chairs wanting to get something done, and I think the farm press is making a way too much to do about the issues relative to the participants in there, meaning G.T. Thompson and Stabenow, working probably closer together than most people think to get a bill done yet this year.
That was sure the indication that I felt from Representative Thompson. He doesn't think that the announcement, while he said it came a little earlier than what he thought it was going to come, he doesn't think that the announcement is going to be too high of a hurdle, or the pending departure of Senator Stabenow is going to be too much of a hurdle in the process of getting it done. Conaway, when I talked with former Representative Conaway on Thursday, he did not anticipate that would be much of a roadblock either. So I think Conaway is optimistic that this thing's going to get done before the end of September as well.
Yes. And he should know, because he went through a grueling process with the Democratic leader in the House Ag Committee, Chairman Colin Peterson, and they had a major fracas regarding food stamp funding. Bottom line, the food stamp funding is almost on autopilot. And if you want a farm bill, you better not be too draconian on the requirements for participants in the food stamp program. The evidence is clear. You won't get a farm bill if you do that. So the Republicans should know that by now.
Okay. I think we're about wrapped up here, aren't we, Jim?
I think we are. We've got major USDA reports out on Thursday. We have the CPI report out on Thursday. We had a relatively Goldilocks jobs report on Friday. So we have some important economic and agriculture reports coming out on Thursday.
Okay, very good. Hey, you know what? Congratulations to SDSU and their championship in the win over NDSU. And you got a championship game tonight, Jim. Who do you like, TCU or Georgia?
Boy, I do like both teams, but I always, and by the way, they're two Southern teams. I've always said Southern teams are typically better than Midwest teams.
I brought this up I brought this up thinking that you just make your pick and move on without making any comments about the Midwest teams. But okay, there it is.
I like them both, and it should be a good game. I'm usually for the underdog. Well, I don't know whether the Georgia should be the favorite. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, Georgia is the favorite. Yeah.
Yeah, I like both teams. So this is where I like it. I don't. It's like when I watch the Commanders and Dallas. I'm going to root against Dallas. So, and I usually like to watch the game rooting against someone rather than rooting for.
Yes. Yep. All right. Well, I'm going to pick TCU. I think it goes against the grain, but I think they're a faster squad. The line is good enough, and they've got. I mean, the quarterbacks on both teams are just fantastic. So, but hey, I think Duggan's going to get things done tonight, and I'm taking TCU. I like it.
They're an exciting team.
They certainly are. All right. Thanks for listening this morning. Today on AgriTalk, we got Machinery Pete and Tom Sell from Comvest Sell and Associates. This afternoon, Scott Davis from Bullpen Trading. Have a great week, everybody. Keep watching for those signals.